How do you defeat an enemy who is stronger, prouder, and seems utterly unstoppable? Do you meet their brute force with your own? Or do you engage in a dangerous game where the truth is hidden and illusion becomes your greatest weapon? This is not merely a battle. It is a masterclass in strategic deception. Our story begins in 632 BC, in the fading light of the spring and autumn period. The superpower of the era, the southern behemoth of Chu, stretched its influence northward, swallowing smaller states. Its king, confident and ambitious, saw the Central Plains as his rightful domain. To challenge him was to invite annihilation. But one man dared. Chang'e, the Duke Wen of Jin, an exiled prince who had endured decades of hardship to reclaim his throne. He knew the rules of the game had to be rewritten. A direct confrontation would be suicide. His only path to victory lay not in matching Chu's strength, but in outthinking its commander. He had to find a way to lure the proud Chu army into a trap, making them believe they were chasing a retreating coward, when in fact they were marching into a perfectly set snare. This is the origin of a philosophy that would define warfare for millennia, an idiom born from the necessity of survival.兵不厌诈. In war, there is no end to deception. How does one make a strategic retreat feel like a victory to the enemy, only to seal their fate? This is the story of the Battle of Chengpu.兵不厌诈. Inside the Jin command tent, a critical debate was underway. The Chu army was advancing, proud and overconfident. The obvious move was to stand and fight, to defend their allies with raw courage. But the chief strategist, Hu Yan, proposed a radical, almost blasphemous plan: to retreat. Not out of fear, but as a deliberate, strategic trap. He argued that by withdrawing 3 days' march, 90 li, they would achieve two devastating psychological blows. First, it would fulfill a decades-old promise Duke Wen had made when he was in exile, receiving hospitality from the Chu king. Honoring this debt publicly would make Jin appear righteous and morally superior in the eyes of all other states, turning their retreat into a powerful propaganda victory. Second, and more crucially, it would inflate the arrogance of the Chu commander, Ziyu. He would perceive the retreat not as a strategy, but as cowardice, luring him and his troops deeper into a chosen killing ground where the Jin army could set their ambush. The dilemma was profound. To the world, it would look like Jin was running. It risked demoralizing their own troops and emboldening the enemy. Duke Wen had to weigh the immediate shame against the ultimate victory. He had to decide whether to play the fool now, to become the master later. In that moment, the philosophy of兵不厌诈moved from theory to practice. The grand deception was now in motion. For 3 days, the Jin army retreated in perfect order. Their formations remained tight, their discipline absolute. This was no rout, but a calculated withdrawal. Yet, to the pursuing Chu forces, it confirmed their commander's deepest prejudice. The Jin were cowards, unwilling to face them in honest combat. With every mile the Jin gave up, the arrogance of the Chu commander, Ziyu, grew. He saw a fleeing enemy, not a retreating strategist. He heard the clatter of retreating armor, not the ticking of a trap being set. His advisors urged caution, suggesting this could be a trick. But Ziyu, blinded by pride and the thirst for a quick, glorious victory, dismissed them. He ordered his entire force to pursue with maximum speed, stretching their supply lines and exhausting his soldiers in the process. The Jin scouts monitored the Chu advance with cold precision. The enemy was taking the bait exactly as predicted. The 90 li retreat was a masterclass in behavioral manipulation. It transformed the Chu army from a disciplined, formidable force into an overextended, breathless, and emotionally charged mob, ripe for the final, devastating counterstroke. The stage for the ambush at Chengpu was now perfectly set. As the first Chu units pushed into the lowlands of Chengpu, the hills themselves suddenly came alive. The calculated retreat was over. The brutal reality of the trap was now unveiled. With earth-shaking war cries, the main Jin force under General Xianzhen turned to face their pursuers head-on, their morale sky-high from having executed the perfect strategy. But this was only the anvil. From the wooded highlands on both flanks, the true hammer fell. Two divisions of elite Jin troops who had been lying in perfect ambush launched their assault. They struck the overextended and disoriented Chu lines like a thunderclap. The Chu army, which moments before had been chasing prey, now found itself completely surrounded. Its formation shattered into pockets of isolated resistance. The genius of the Jin deception was now in full, terrifying display. The Chu commander Ziyu watched in horror as his numerical advantage evaporated in the face of superior positioning and preparation. The cowards he had been chasing were in fact masters of the battlefield, and his own pride had delivered his army into their hands. The philosophy of strategic deception had reached its brutal, logical conclusion on the plains of Chengpu. The field at Chengpu fell silent, littered with the grim evidence of the Chu army's catastrophic defeat. Their proud banners lay trampled in the mud, their once invincible reputation shattered in a single afternoon. The Jin strategy, a perfect execution of Bīng bu yan jia, had achieved what few thought possible. A smaller force had decisively triumphed over the era's superpower. For the Chu commander Ziyu, the price of his arrogance was absolute. He escaped with his life, but his military career and honor were left in ruins on that field. A personal tragedy born from his failure to see the deception at play. For Duke Wen of Jin, however, this victory was his ultimate validation. It cemented his status as a hegemon, a leader of unparalleled strategic wisdom and restraint. The other states of the Central Plains now looked to Jin, not Chu, for protection and leadership. But as Duke Wen surveyed the cost, the lives lost on both sides, his expression remained heavy. He understood that this victory, however brilliant, was built on a foundation of calculated deceit and the blood of the fallen. It posed a timeless question. In the pursuit of a greater good, where does wise strategy end, and does the end always justify the means? The victory at Chengpu was complete, but its moral echoes would linger. The dust of Chengpu settled over 2 millennia ago, but the philosophy forged there, Bīng bu yan jia, transcended that single battlefield to become a cornerstone of strategic thought. It is not a mere endorsement of deception, but a profound understanding that in any complex conflict, perception must be managed, illusions must be crafted, and the opponent's mind must be outmaneuvered before the first real move is even made. We see its echoes not in the breach of trust among friends, but in the fierce competition of rivals. It is the feint of an athlete, the misdirection of a grandmaster in chess, the disruptive innovation in business that redefines the entire market. It is the art of winning through intellect before a costly confrontation becomes inevitable. This Chinese wisdom finds its parallel in Sun Tzu's timeless axiom: all warfare is based on deception. The story of Chengpu teaches us that true power lies not in the blunt application of force, but in the creative and disciplined application of wisdom. It is a lesson for leaders, innovators, and strategists across the ages. To navigate a complex world, one must learn to see beyond the obvious, to think around the problem, and to understand that the highest form of victory is often achieved by shaping the very reality in which the contest takes place. 兵不厌诈，兵不厌诈